Good afternoon, Assembly Member. How are you, sir?
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me.
Good, good. Assembly Member, first, talk a little bit about yourself and what you do, and then we will talk about why you and I are on this Zoom here. But yeah, just tell us a little bit about yourself so people that don't know you, meaning outside of your district or throughout the city, know who you are and what you do and what issues are important and near and dear to you.
Well, I'm currently the state assembly member for the 73rd district, which is much of the Upper East Side and Midtown East. I've served in that role since 2023. When I was elected, I became the first Democrat elected in New York State at any level with a degree in computer science. And so I do a lot of legislation around tech and AI, but I also grew up and have spent nearly my entire time in New York and in particular in Manhattan. And so I get to represent my elementary school, PS6, and Wagner and Hunter. My middle school and high school are right nearby. I represent my dad. I really came up in the community, and no knock on those public schools, but the best education I ever got was actually on the picket line with my dad when I was 8 years old, and he and his union were locked out for fighting for better healthcare. Labor and unions have been a big part of why I was able to grow up with the life I was as a middle class family in New York, and a big part of my work since.
Assembly Member, there's the AI bill that you're working on, which is a national conversation. Can you give me a practical example of how the layperson, random person, again, that's not a tech person, is harmed by AI and what you're trying to do in terms of the legislation? Because, right, Chat GPT is now part of, from all, I mean, something unrelated but related, automated vehicles, right? AI. There's so many things that are happening. I hear there's a bar now that has a robot bartender in New York City, or they're trying to get licensed. But I'm just giving, please explain to me what what are the harmful impacts of AI and what is your bill trying to do?
A few things I would say to this. The first is that overall, I am very bullish on AI. I think it is the most powerful technology that we have developed, and I think it's going to move quicker than any technology before. And it's because I believe it is so powerful that I think we need to protect against the downsides, right? The upsides are clear. It's going to help to cure diseases. It's going to create incredible economic opportunity. It's going to just automate some of the routine monotony of life. But the downsides are also powerful. The harms that we are seeing right now from AI include political deepfakes and the degradation of a belief in truth in the political system, very advanced scams and targeting where it'll call grandma or grandpa and use a child's voice and ask for money to be sent. And so it's
Mm,
a scary situation. We're seeing so scams are a big way that is being harmed.
okay, I
We're
get
also
it.
seeing chatbots where it is maybe contributing to people's mania, or at least leading them down a path of expressing it more and not referring them to help. And we've seen recent unfortunate children losing their lives after long interactions with some of these chatbots when they really needed mental help. And so there are plenty of current harms before we get to what it's doing to the job market and how it might lead to layoffs and harming people's just ability to work. The bill in particular that we pushed this year was actually focused on even worse things coming down the pike. So there's a lot that we need to do in regulating deepfakes and chatbots and how it's involved in labor, and also the same pathways that make me so bullish on AI being able to cure diseases also make it possible to design really dangerous bioweapons or for it to be used to do expansive cyber attacks. Microsoft came out with a report just a couple weeks ago about how they are seeing a tenfold increase in AI-powered cyber attacks. We're also seeing places where these algorithms already have the power to design a bioweapon to answer critical biological questions better than PhD virologists. And so if you don't have the large frontier developers right now thinking about how people can safely use the software, what restrictions they need to put on it, we're going to get into much, much worse territory very soon.
Give me the example of the chatbot for young men and women.
Yeah,
What
well,
is an example of how that's problematic? Give me an example of a chatbot, even if it's a fictitious scenario of how that is a problem.
I'll give one that was just covered last week in the Times, and I want to be clear that I think there's litigation ongoing, and so
Yeah,
everything
yeah, yeah,
I'm
yeah,
saying
of
is
course.
alleged,
Yeah, yeah, correct.
but as I understand it, there was a teenager that started having a conversation with a variety of different characters. There are a number of different software providers that will make AI speak as someone in particular. And this teenager really formed a deep emotional bond with a chatbot that was pretending to be Daenerys from Game of Thrones.
Oh, okay.
And they started communicating in ways that at times, were a deep emotional bond. At other times were fairly sexually explicit, and none of these kind of pulled out and provided warning signs. The teenagers started spending hours and hours and hours communicating with the chatbot. They got demerits in school. They started doing worse in school.
Hmm.
The parents weren't sure why. They had tried to really limit screen time and limit social media, but they didn't know to look for these chatbots. And then they seized the child's phone based on a demerit, and that child ended up searching the home to find the phone, found their phone, also found a handgun, and unfortunately took their own life.
Wow.
And there was communication with the chatbot saying, "I just want to be with you. Like, let's take a step and be together." And there were times when it seemed like the chatbot intervened. If he said anything explicit about taking his own life, the chatbot would say that. But when he used this coded language of "I'm going to take a final step and be together," the chatbot encouraged him to do so. There's
Well, so that's like an AI catfish then.
in some sense, we've seen other examples where someone said, again, a teenager said that they were going to, um, they were maybe take their own life, and that they wanted to leave a noose out so that someone would see it and maybe intervene. And the chatbot told them not to leave the noose out.
Wow. So we're living in a new world.
Yeah.
Assembly member, now let's talk about the actual race. You're running for Congress to replace Congress Member Jerry Nadler, who I mean he served for many, many, many years. But I have now, and you've raised over $1 million, right? In what was it, 24, 48 hours, 72 hours?
We've raised $1.2 million in the bank, not pledges, in the bank in the first 15 hours of the
Wow,
campaign.
that's impressive. But here's what I have in terms of the math, right? For years now, we've seen it time and time again where the West Side determines who the borough president is, right? Ruth Messenger, Scott Stringer, Mark Levine, now Brad Hoylman, and there may be folks that I'm forgetting, but the East Side, and we saw it with Congresswoman Nadler and Congresswoman Maloney with the redistricting. How do you surmount that? Because you're on the East Side. And the most voter-rich area, I think, in anywhere is the West Side, if I'm not mistaken. And there is, right, Michael Lasher, um, is very close to Congressmember Nadler, Stringer, worked in the governor's office. It's been around a long time. How do
Yeah.
you surmount that? And what is the plan to sort of overcome, the numbers?
Well, I have a lot of friends on the West Side. Even Gail Brewer, who I have tremendous respect, though she's endorsed otherwise in this race, said, "Oh yeah, we
Well,
see
I
Alex."
forgot Gail, another West
Yeah,
Sider,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Go
yeah.
ahead. I'm sorry I
Wonderful,
interrupted.
wonderful former borough president, city council member, and she said, "Oh, we see Alex on the West Side all the time." So I am all over. That is my reputation. That absolutely no one outworks me. But I'll say that on all of those previous races you mentioned, it was one on one, one on the West Side versus one on the East Side. And this is going to be a race with 12 people in it. But even if you limit it to the elected officials, or maybe you limit it to those that have raised over $500,000 in outside sources, there's four of those candidates in this race. Three of them are on the west side. I'm the only one on the east side. So
Mm.
we're all going to go everywhere. We're all going to fight for all our votes. I have the largest base of support to start from. My entire district is in the congressional district. That's not true for Eric Botcher and Michael Lasher. I'm going to have strong representation on the east side, but my goal is to win every single electoral district. You're going to see me everywhere.
So I wanna sort of play role play here. I'm the voter on 72nd Street and Broadway, or I forget which is the major stop there. There's a big train station there that's big for retail.
Yep.
And I'm familiar with Michael Asher. He's the local assembly member, worked for the governor, a lot of policy work for Governor Hochul, worked at the DOE, right? Has been around a long time. Why should I vote for assembly member? And no knock on you, two-term assembly member Alex Boris, right? But if I'm thinking experience, and I'm thinking government experience, and I've been around the block a few times. Why should I vote for Alex Boris, right?
Well, if you're thinking government experience, I've passed more bills than everyone else in this race combined. And it's been about things that deliver directly for constituents. But beyond that, I'm the only one that has experience both deeply in the private sector and the public sector. And the through line in everything that I've done has been making government work. So even before I was in government, I was doing things like helping the Department of Justice take on the opioid epidemic and helping local governments distribute aid. So I'll put my track record up against anyone, but ultimately, a campaign isn't just about the track record, it's about your vision. It's about what you're actually going to deliver for people in the future. And let's be frank, this is a Democratic primary in the middle of Manhattan. A lot of us are going to be saying the same things. We're going to be talking about climate change and raising the minimum wage, and we're going to be talking about protecting Social Security and all of the standard Democratic fare that is really, really important. And we're all going to be talking about fighting Trump. But fighting Trump is not enough, right? Our democracy is not healthy now, and Trump is a big reason for that. But my question to every voter is, was our democracy healthy in 2016, the day before Trump won an election? No, he is a cause, but he is also a symptom. And what Democrats have been missing is if we're gonna we can't just fight Trump, we have to actually restore our democracy. And that includes standard democratic fare like partisan gerrymandering, campaign finance reform, all these things. And we need to be electing leaders that understand the way that tech is fundamentally changing power, the way social media algorithms are keeping us in our bubbles and making it impossible to have conversation across difference, the way AI is making it impossible to know what is true and also hyper targeting people so that we're not having these conversations. So I think the question to any voter in this election is, listen, you're going to get a really good representative. If you're choosing almost anyone running, you're going to get someone who is going to toe the party line on the vast majority of issues. But when you think about one congressman, what they can add to the conversation, who's bringing something different? Who is bringing something new to the conversation that actually helps solve big national problems and helps restore our democracy?
Assembly member, I wanna just to hear your thoughts on the state of Israel, right? And because it's become a hot topic in the mayoral race, for sure. Language, who said what, I mean Gaza, on. And I know that the former or current Congressmember Nadler is obviously the chair of the caucus in DC. What is your position and what are your thoughts on, what's happening over there, fully understanding that this is a federal thing and even who endorsed who matters in terms of our congressional delegation or senator. So I want to hear your thoughts on what your position is on that issue.
What we've seen over the past 2 years has been a tragedy. It was started with a horrific terrorist attack. We have seen far too many, but from Hamas, which needs to be eliminated. We've seen far too many civilians die in the intervening 2 years. I am so encouraged and hopeful that we are nearing the end of that conflict and that this ceasefire holds. Of course, even just last night, I think over 100 people in Gaza were killed in a strike. And so the ceasefire is teetering on an edge. We in the US need to do everything we can to establish peace, not just in the immediate term of that ceasefire, but in the long term. And the way we do it in the long term is by surging aid into Gaza and making sure that people have a thriving economy, that is a place where you can live and have hope for the future. And while maintaining our strong alliance with Israel, we need to be doing everything we can to alleviate the humanitarian crisis there.
I want to get your opinion on a state issue that's really tied to a federal issue, and what are your thoughts in terms of addressing it? Federal funding, right? City, we try to get two funding streams in addition to the city coffers, state money, federal money, things like NYCHA, a lot of the money, WIC, some of the aid that comes from the federal government. People are extremely concerned. And our president is saying, you know what, if Mamdani wins, Assembly Member Mamdani, oh, it's game on. I'm gonna cut and cut and cut. What are your thoughts on how the state should address an issue and something that again plays into your run for Congress? What are your 2 cents on how your conference and governor should address and have these, how do you make up that gap?
Yeah, I think there's three things here. The first is we should do everything we can in our power to protect New Yorkers. And the state is already being quite creative in where we can surge resources, and we're going to need to continue to be. But I think there's two other aspects we need to remember. The first is that Trump doesn't need the excuse of Zoran to be targeting New York, right? His response to the shutdown was to cancel really critical infrastructure in our district. It was to say we're no longer providing funds for the Gateway Project or for the Second Avenue subway, projects that former Rep. Carolyn Maloney was a huge champion of getting forward. That's not, I think that action is illegal. I think it'll eventually be overturned. But even if it does, just the threat of funding being cut raises the riskiness of the projects and therefore raises the cost of any future infrastructure. So whoever the Congress member from this district is, they need to be laser focused on making sure we are getting all those resources. Trump's going to target it no matter who the mayor is. But I lastly just want to remind everyone, because too often we're used to the fact that Trump acts irrationally, and so we normalize behavior. We are specifically talking about the president of the United States targeting other Americans and trying to inflict pain for political benefit. That should be a scandal that leads to someone being impeached. It won't be, but let's continue to call out how cruel and inhumane this administration is.
Assembly member, how do you make up the sort of institutional support that could potentially or likely go to Assembly Member Michael Asher? Plain and simple, boots on the ground, Democratic clubs, labor unions, which put people on doors and visibility. How do you surmount that in terms of running your campaign? One thing is to have money,
Yeah.
but we've seen with this organizing and getting people to do the ground game or, take part in that. How do you surmount that?
Oh,
And
I
are
think
there prominent endorsements or commitments that you have so far that you want to let us know about here?
I would stay tuned on that, but I would say you should be asking everyone else that. I think when it comes to the Democratic clubs, when it comes to labor, I have closer relationships than anyone. Everyone's going to get their pieces of this. I'm not saying I'm going to sweep on it, but I feel really, really good about the response to our campaign, besides the fundraising, the outreach that I've received. And as I said, my reputation has always been being everywhere all the time. You're going to see that, and you're going to see a lot of people jumping to that vision and supporting.
Let's wrap this up. Three most important issues that you hear day in and day out from constituents incoming, and what you'll do to address them.
Yeah, the first is restoring our democracy. That is more than just fighting Trump. That is thinking about all of the factors that made our democracy unhealthy to begin with and making sure that we tackle them. That includes the social media and AI and all of the ways that we are currently unable to have conversation across differences. The second one is going to clearly be the economy. That is going to be a wide-ranging aspects that includes impacts on jobs, but includes infrastructure funding here in the district. New York needs to continue to grow. This is the center of New York City, and we need a Congress member who's going to fight to get all of the resources into this area and continue to build the economy. And third is going to be affordability, and that takes a wide range of different aspects. That includes fighting for universal childcare, restoring the child tax credit, finding ways to directly make it cheaper to raise a family, as well as continuing to get more funding for housing, to fight the tariffs that are just a tax on Americans, and all of the ways that the current federal administration is making it harder to live in America.
Let's wrap this up. Assemblyman, I want to hold to the time I know you committed to, and you're running a race, so you got to be a lot of places and a lot of meetings, a lot of calls. So anything you want to add that I forgot to ask you?
I think anyone who's inspired by this, go to alexboris.nyc, sign up for our listserv and stay in touch. Anyone who is upset by this, do the same and shoot me an email. The best campaigns are conversations, and I really want to restore democracy where we can have those conversations. So reach out, give me your feedback. Would love to talk.
Thank you so much, Assembly Member. Hopefully you'll be back soon as the campaign progresses and there are new developments that you want to share with us. So thank you so much, Assembly Member. All the
Thanks
best
for
to
having
you.
me.
Good luck.